So we're going to disassemble the clutch on the 720. I've already taken the cotter pins out of these castle nuts here. And we just need to loosen these up. And the reason to disassemble is if you need to inspect the clutch parts for any wear or any noises or anything like that, or if you need to get the belt pulley off, you'll have to take all these assemblies out of here. So you got castle nuts and these beveled washers on there. Take those off. Then we'll take this pressure plate off. And you can see it's got 3 springs in there, and there's also a friction disc inside here. So you want to inspect that, make sure it's not wore or glazed or anything like that. These clutch parts are fairly new, so just make sure when you take these off that you lay them down in order so you get them right when you put them back in. Next is going to be a metal clutch disc. It just slides off. And then there's going to be another friction plate here, and you can see that it's lined up on these pins here. That's just going to slide out. Again, inspect those for any glazing or any wear. Again, these are fairly new. There's no issues with those. Got another metal clutch disc. And depending on what model tractor you're using or you're working on, this is going to be different. This is the 70, 720, 730. This is how the clutches are going to be. But if you're working on, say, a John Deere 50, you're going to have less components. Another friction disc. And then now we're down to the clutch driver, and this has to be pulled off. So the first thing we got to defeat is this here, and it's 1 1/8 inches. So if you get on there and it's on there tight enough and you start to turn it, sometimes your engine will start to rotate, the crankshaft will rotate. If that's the case, you just take a hammer and start pounding on your wrench here to start it without turning the engine. But this one should come off here. And just unscrew that. And then if you look here, the distance between the end of the crank and the end of the clutch driver, you want to have a pretty decent gap there. This is hovering right around 1/4 inch, I suppose. That means that the crank is good. If they're flush, you've got way too much wear in your crank because this is a taper lock clutch driver. So now to get this off, obviously it just won't pull off. So you've got to take a couple 1/2 inch bolts, and you'll see these holes here on each side. You just want to start these 1/2 inch bolts in there, and this acts as a puller. And you want to start to tighten these evenly, and it'll pop that clutch driver right off the crankshaft. So we'll go ahead and start tightening these. There, and it's starting to grab. So just a couple cranks on it at a time so it starts to come off evenly. There, and it's starting to move. And This one came off relatively easy because I had it off not too long ago, but if you have one that's tight down there, you start cranking on it and you'll actually hear it pop, and then it will come out. So we can just start to pull that right off. And you can see that's how the bolts go, and you can see where the bolts we're pushing on there. We've got that off. And then the last thing is you've got another friction disc that's in here. So that's how you disassemble your clutch. Couple things: if you need to take your belt pulley off, what you'll need to do is you'll need to go around and start taking these bolts off. This is kind of a dust cover right here that lines up on the belt pulley and it attaches to the tractor. So go around, and even on this shield here, you've got a couple pins and some nuts. And then up underneath, take all these bolts out. You'll need to take off your pulley brake, and then you'll need to disconnect your linkage for your clutch here, which is just a pin and a cotter pin. And then I had to take my decompression lever apart too to make some room here for that. Once you get all the bolts out and all this off, you'll want to go and take a pry bar or a chisel and just go real easy in here. I took a chisel and just tapped lightly around in a couple areas, and finally that gasket started to let loose. And then you literally just grab the belt pulley and pull it straight off the tractor, and then the clutch fork will swing out with it. And that's how you get your belt pulley off. And we'll go ahead and do another video on clutch assembly and clutch adjustment.